Yes, I think we should start because I mean people will start trickling in anyways. So
Sure,
let's
sure.
start here.
Yeah.
And good morning, everybody. I'm very happy to announce the latest in our series of signature session series, which we started to as an event to help our students who are in quarantine or in lockdown, so and help them realize what is happening in the real world. You know, and we started with Mukul Goyal, who's a product designer, and it went on to a lot more experts in their fields who contributed in helping our students understand where the profession stands and where what are the various influences in the profession. So one of the students had asked me if we can connect to a UX designer, and I had just met up with Anand a few weeks back at Bangalore. Anand has been my student at the NID, where I've taught form to him. I don't know if you remember my lessons, but I'm sure he remembers me because when I called him up and I said, "Are you available?" So he readily agreed. So I'm very happy that you did doing this, Anand. And Anand is a postgraduate in product design from NID Ahmedabad. He has also done his electronics and communication engineering as his graduation. He has more than 8 years of experience in the field of UI and UX design. He's currently working as a UX design specialist at SAP Labs. He's a former UX designer at Samsung Research and Development Institute, Bangalore, and Infosys. He has worked in different project domains like UX research, mobile operating systems, UX standardization, consumer applications, and business-to-business products. He is also a flautist. In fact, that post you wrote about the flute is very interesting. Anand, you must share it with the rest of the audience as well about that.
Thank
He's
you.
also a photographer and a blogger. So very happy to introduce Anand here. Over to you, Anand.
Yeah, so happy to be here. Good morning, everyone. And let's start with the session, which is Pixels and Beyond. And as Bala already introduced me, so I don't need any further introduction. So before we start, I will just like to clarify a few things. So one of the thing is there'll be some very UI UX specific terms that I might be using, and if you are new to this field, it might be confusing for you. So if that is the case, please let me know, and I will give you a little bit more explanation about the terms. And feel free to interrupt me at any point of time for questions or queries or anything, even though we are having dedicated time for Q&A towards the end of the session. And since we are virtually connected, it is all internet and a lot more things. So if there is any technical glitch, then please let me know. Then we'll just try to resolve it upfront. Okay, so now let's start with like what is so unique about this field, because so many people ask me what is so unique about UX design with respect to other design fields. So we need to look into the definition of UI design. So it says that user interface design is the design of user interfaces and machines and software such as computer, home appliances, mobile devices, and other electronic devices with the focus on maximizing usability and user experience. So you will be able to notice that technology has a very crucial role in this field. So technology is always there. In fact, there is no UI design possible if there is no machine. So it is always between humans and machine. So let me talk about little bit of evolution part of it, because it has a very high pace of evolution. And it started typically with computers, and then the feature phones with those keypad, it came into picture. And after that, smartphones came into picture, and then the touchscreen devices came into picture like tablets. And then the whole world of wearable devices came into picture. And then we got the voice assistants. and then the augmented reality, virtual reality, and so on. So it is very diversified landscape, I would say, from the hardware point of view. And when we talk about such diversified landscape, it also comes up with some opportunities as well as challenges. So one of the factor I would like to talk about is the screen sizes. So if you look at the computers, it is relatively big screen device. And then if you look into the feature phone, smartphone, tablet, wearable, so screen size kept on reducing. And then there was a time when the voice assistants introduced like Alexa and Google Assistant. So there was no need of screen at all. You can just talk to the device. So there was no screen at all. And after that, AR, VR devices came into picture. So screen was everywhere. So you just put on the headset and you get to interact with screen everywhere around you. So it went from big screen to no screen to infinite screen. And then you can imagine how much opportunities it can open up as a designer. So many people ask me, like, I did my post graduation in product design, and what is so exciting about UX design, or why did I choose this field? So, first and foremost thing was I was very curious about technology, and more than that, I wanted to explore the human aspects of technology. So, how can we help humans and society around you to enhance their lifestyle, or to solve their needs with help of technology. So that thing was quite exciting, and till the date it is the most exciting thing about my job. So if I talk about the UI field and pace of evolution, then definitely the smartphone comes in my mind, because smartphone is kind of a role model. Like how it evolved is amazing. So here you can see the first Samsung Note, which is launched in 2011, and can you imagine, just less than 10 years, and we get to see the latest Note, which has a lot more features, and it is much more powerful from the computing point of view. And in between, they kept on introducing various hardwares and technologies. So the air view came into picture. That means the stylus need not to touch the screen in order to start the interaction. And then heart rate monitor came into picture, and then there was the entire world of Samsung Health around it. And after that, magnetic secure transmission came into picture, which is also called MST technology. That means you can tap your phone and you can do the money transfer. Then the curved displayed dual cameras, that gives you picture quality very close to the DSLR with all depths and all. And after that, voice assistant also came into picture. You can just interact with your phone with your voice. And now we have AR, VR camera, so that the camera is not just a camera, but it also introduces the world of augmented reality and virtual reality. So this was just an overview, and now let me start with the process bit. So the diagram you can see is called design-led development process, and it is a typical process we follow at SAP. So it has three phases: discover, design, and develop. So discover phase is more into problem space, and design and development is into solution space. So if we focus on the leftmost corner, so it is a discover phase where we define the scope, we do research, and then we come up with the synthesize. Then the phase in the center is a design phase where we ideate, prototype, and then we again do the validation of the prototype with actual users. And the rightmost corner is the development phase, where the development team comes into picture, and then they implement the design. And then again, the designers comes into picture. We do the testing bit, and if everything is okay, we deploy the product to the end user. So that is deployment, or we can also call it release. So this is a typical cycle, and as you already know, most of the software products they have multiple versions. So we also repeat this cycle multiple times. So let's start with the first phase, which is a research phase. So user interviews is a very important aspect of research phase. It is also a similar thing for rest of the design world. So I would just give you a few pointers. I don't have time to get into a very detailed overview of this user interviews, but still I would be able to give you a few pointers like do's and don'ts sort of thing. So before you start interviewing users, it is good to connect to possible contributors, gather their queries, questions, hypotheses, and expectations prior to interview so that you are well prepared about the interviews. And then you prefer to go as a pair. So if at least two people should be there, interviewer and note taker. So one person keeps on interacting with the end user and another person keeps on taking the notes. You can also record the session, but as you know, in the European countries and even in India, also people feel quite conscious if you start recording the session. So it's good to do, but you cannot do it all the time. So still, note taking is the best approach to document. Then you prefer to conduct an interview in a natural work environment. So you just ask them, can we do it at your office, at your desk? And then it gives you a lot more insight because it is a natural environment for user to comment or interact. And then brief user well about the purpose and expectation. So there shouldn't be any misunderstanding why we are here and why we are asking such questions. Adapt to users personality while interaction. So you might encounter different kind of personas. So there are different kind of users. If user is casual, it is good to be casual while taking interview. And don't just focus on application while interacting with users. So there are a lot more things. There is an environment around user. There are various expressions while user is interacting. So just be observant, keep on observing everything. Don't be just focus about the application that you are interviewing. And create a long-term collaboration. So ask them, can we again connect? Can I connect back and can I have another session with you? So it always helps. So once you gather good amount of understanding of end users, what you can do is you can start documenting them. And one of the common and most effective method of documentation is creating persona. So persona is nothing but it kind of documents the user in a neat way. So it talks about like who is the user and then user's motivation, goal, frustration, and then little bit of introduction of user, the personality spectrum, the technology is dealing with, and so on. So there are multiple users and you can create multiple personas. So even in SAP also, we emphasize a lot on persona, and we are dealing with mostly B2B products. So most of the time we don't even know the user. So I will give you one example. I work on the products which are in the production line of BMW, and the person who is actually producing the cars in BMW, I don't even know that person. So it is important for me to kind of build a persona of that person so that I know that person and my rest of the teammates also have good understanding of that person before we start designing or developing the application around it. And once you start creating the persona, what you can do is you can also map the application. So as an organization, for one persona, you might end up building multiple applications. So what you can think is you can think of a repository where you note down the personas and then you can start linking the application to the persona. And it is really helpful. You can give access to the rest of the community also about all the whole repository. That's what we do. And there are usual personas, there are expert personas. So let us say if you are designing a product which is machine learning product or a very specific product. So you might need to interview a person who is more like an expert, and the expert persona can actually talk about a lot of things. He can talk about users, he can talk about technology, he can talk about other pain points which a particular persona might not be able to tell you. So this is also quite helpful, and then you should have a good repository of expert personas as well for your domain. So these are the typical research techniques. Now I would also like to talk about some of the emerging research techniques. And some of these techniques are very specific to the field of UI. And you will also get to know why it is very specific to UI. So first of all, let's try to understand why do we need to have more innovative approach towards research whenever it comes to the field of UI. So first of all, the life cycle of the product, as we already know, it is decreased day by day, and it is not in our hands. So we cannot actually tell company, or you don't release products so rapidly. I'm not getting time to do my research and so on. So we have to be more innovative to kind of keep up the pace. And what we can do is we can have long-term research strategies. So the research strategies which is not dedicated for just discover phase, but it can kind of go as a vertical, sorry, the horizontal with respect to the process diagram. So the first technique can be the data gathering strategy. So since most of the products are on cloud and they're well connected with internet, what we can do is we can kind of give disclaimer to the end user, or we can also ask for the permission that we would like to collect some of the data, and we also can let them know what is the purpose behind the data collection. We can do it legally, so there shouldn't be any illegal data collection, of course, and it should be done with user consent. But if user is allowing you to do so, it can be beneficial for you as a designer, as well as it can give great benefits back to the end user, because on the move you get to know about so many pain points whenever user starts using the application. And if your user base is growing bigger, you can get even bigger insights. So you get fair pointers for further research in the future, and you can also forecast the trend. So I will give you one nice example. So with Samsung phones, there were only rear cameras. There were no front camera or the selfie cameras. But what we got to know when we started launching the front camera, people started taking more pictures from front camera than the back camera, and so that based on that we could actually forecast the trend that in future front camera will become more important than the rear camera. And now it is the reality, right? But then uh, we could forecast this trend 8 years back. um, and then it also gives good pointers to improve the product overall. Then the second technique can be real-time customer feedback. So once you are uh, giving a software, there are some important activities around it, and you can set up a mechanism where you ask for a quick feedback whenever user is done with the activity. So there are various ways you can just ask user to rate the experience, or you can just ask user what went wrong if something goes wrong. And it is a good collection of user input. So we can have machine learning algorithm that analyzes the stream of input received from the user, or we can also sit and look into the inputs, and then it can be really good pointer for the future releases. And the third point is establishment of community page. So community page is all about end users, and user can talk about the features they want in future, or if they are finding any difficulties with the current release, they can talk about it. So it is a very good place where we can build a community aspect, and it increases the empathy, trust, and transparency towards the product. So now let's get into the application design aspect of it. So now we understood the research aspect. Now the second portion is application design, where we start designing the application. So let me tell you one ongoing battle, especially for UI UX field. So there is a technology and there's a user, and since the field is heavily influenced by technology, there are chances where company will push a technology bit without user research, since they can do that technology in a product. But then doing this thing without user concern might be disastrous, right? So I will just like to give you one example. It is not even related to UI field, and it might be hypothetical also, but then I liked it from the learning point of view. So in 1965, NASA needed to write in a space, and zero gravity prevents normal pens from working. So what they did, they started exploring the technology, and they spent around $12 million and years of research to build a space pen. But then Russians could do it with pencil as well. So from the story point of view, if you look at the first story, it is all about technology. They just wanted to do something high-fundu from the technology bit without thinking much about user and user's need. But the second story is all about user, what user needs, and how can we fulfill the need of user with bare minimum technical interventions. So this is what Steve Jobs said. You have got to start with customer experience and work backward towards the technology, not other way around. And it is very true for the field of UI UX. So now I will like to go through some of the case studies, the real application design case studies, to understand how human-centered design approach works. So the first application I would like to talk about is Spatial Days. So it is an application in Samsung smartphones, and it started with the question, how can we celebrate festivals better with smartphones? So as we already know, now we are not having big families. So many of us are migrants to some states, and we don't have very deeper connect towards the Indian festivals. We might even don't know how to prepare a particular recipe specific to a festival. So we created an experience around the Indian festival. So that means if there is a Diwali, the environment of your phone will change, uh, and it will give you feel of Diwali, and it will show you the history of the festival. You can also create DIY greetings with the phone camera by applying some backgrounds very specific to the festival, and you can also play some games. So let us say if it is Diwali, you can make your rangoli on the phone and you can share it across with your friends and family. And phone also gives you some recipes specific to the festival, and it also
Anand, your
generates.
voice is dropping. Can you speak up, please?
Yeah, sure, sure,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Am I clear now?
yeah, better.
Okay,
Thanks.
then I'll be little slow then. Yeah, so the application gives history about the festival, DIY greetings, so you can create greetings specific to the festival with specific backgrounds, and you can play games like on the Diwali. You can create rangolis on your own on the phone, and you can share those virtual rangolis with your friends and family members. You can get to see the recipe specific to the festival, and phone also generates the auspicious time. So let's talk about this festival food feature. So as I talked about recipe, and while designing this feature, what we realized was we don't have good documentation around Indian festival foods. So what we did was we did some research, and we collected food items which are specific to various festivals, 40 Indian dishes, and then we started roaming around Bangalore streets, and we got the dishes, and we did the food photography around it, and then we built a application for it. And another feature I would like to talk about is Auspicious Time. So as we already know, the auspicious time has a lot of value, especially during the time of festivals. So in India, Hindu festivals, there is a Muhurt time. And while doing research, what we got to know, it is based on some complex mathematical calculation. So if I am in Bangalore with a particular latitude, longitude, and time of season, there might be a different muhurt applicable for me. And if you are in Delhi, it might be different. So then we asked technical team with the current set of sensor, can we do it? And they said, yeah, we can do it. And then we built a feature around it. And then we could also build it for Islamic prayer times. So again, it is some complex calculation, and we could achieve it with the help of phone sensors. Then the second case study is bike mode. So um, we have maximum number of two-wheeler riders, and all of us, we know how dangerous it is because people don't wear helmets, and even with the era of smartphone, they talk on their smartphone and while riding, so they meet with an accident, and there are so many unfortunate events around it. So we started with a question: how can we ride safe with smartphones? And bike mode was the answer. So we created a bike mode where we can keep the emergency contacts upfront. So if rider is meeting with an accident, without unlocking the phone, the surrounded people can contact emergency contacts. And there is a auto answering mode also. So let us say if you are riding on your bike and somebody is trying to call you, the call will not directly establish, but it will get into the uh, auto answering mode. And if it is not urgent, actually the person who is calling you can record the audio message, and it appears in the audio call log later on, and you can listen to it. And it also gives you right summary for your entire month, entire week. And if you are doing well, that means you are not talking while riding and so on. So it will also give you badges, and it is a sort of gamification to keep people motivated about good habit or good practice. So I also love this definition given by Alan Cooper. If we want users to like our software, we should design it to behave like a likable person, respectful, generous, and helpful. So we talked about research, we talked about applications. Now let's see what is beyond applications. So there is a technology landscape in the world of UI UX. So there is a cloud computing. That means we can connect multiple devices with one application, and there is a scene of AI ML. So that means there is a artificial intelligence and machine learning. There is a robotic process automation, and there is an Internet of Things. So it allows us to do bigger work with the field of UI UX. So I will give you one small example what we can do with IoT enabled product. So this use case is from my own water purifier. So I have installed it, and I loved it because of the fact that it connects back to my smartphone, and it connects over Wi-Fi. So whenever I connect my smartphone to the water purifier, it gives me the TTS value, which is associated with water quality. It also shows me the health of the filter. So there are three filters, and it shows me that they are 91% fine, and no need to change them. It also shows me the summary for the water consumption. So it gives me monthly summary, weekly summary, and I get to know how much water we are consuming as a couple. And so now let me talk about ecosystems. So now various brands, they have started building product ecosystems. So there are wearables, there are desktop applications, there are mobile applications, there are voice assistants, and they kind of form an ecosystem. and there is a user around it. So there is quite possible that I'm using a phone from Google, and I'm using Apple laptop at the same point of time. I'm going to office and consuming applications from SAP. So what does it mean for a UI UX designer? Actually, it opens up bigger horizon and bigger opportunities. So now you can step out and from application design, you can start thinking about a system design. That means you have to think about uniform user experience across the devices. You need to establish uniform UI patterns. So let us say a deletion is happening in a particular way in one device, it should happen in a similar way in another device. You should think about the responsiveness of the screens. So there are various screen sizes, and if we have designed something for the desktop application, if we migrate it to the smartphone, there shouldn't be any experience loss or data loss. And we also need to think about quality assurance across the portfolio. So these are the bigger challenges, and what I would advise is you need to collaborate with different people. You need to collaborate with technology people. You need to collaborate with product experts in order to realize all these things. You cannot work in silos. So let me talk about some challenges of modern UI UX field. So first of all, I would like to talk about the product standards. So since I said there are so many players in this industry, and they have their own way of defining UX, there are some conflicts. So let me start with this small example. So in a bicycle, right hand is associated to the front brake, and left hand is associated to the rear brake. Now let's assume if somebody interchanges it. So actually it happened to one of my friends. So mechanic, he interchanged the front and rear brake by mistake, and he fell down because of it, ended up breaking his hand. So this is what happens whenever we are introduced to different standards. So one classic example is the calling application. So in Samsung smartphone, it looks like this, but in OnePlus, it looks different. So you have to swipe up to reject the call and swipe down to accept the call. But in my wife's phone, yeah, my smartphone, it is other way around. So you swipe up to answer and swipe down to reject. And with so many standards around us, it leads to confusion. So I would not say there is a simple workaround for this, but then sometimes we need to look into such conflicts, and we need to think of a workaround. So one of the workaround can be allowing user to be more flexible. So there is an example about mouse and touchpad. It tells you that you can either have reverse scrolling direction. That means you scroll on mouse, and the scrolling in the screen happens in a reverse way. Actually, the research tells that there are some users who are more comfortable with this kind of reverse scrolling direction, but some users are not comfortable with it. So you can turn it off as well. And then another challenge is we are making UI simple and simple day by day. But is it robust enough? So let me tell you one case study. So it is about Alexa. A 6-year-old girl ordered a dollhouse through Amazon Alexa simply by asking Alexa for it. So it is very simple thing, right? Even a kid can order stuff from Alexa. But then it is also disastrous because parents didn't want her to do so. So then it became a news, and then it didn't end there. So um, it came in the news, and during the news broadcast of this incident, when news anchor said, "I love the little girl saying, Alexa, order me a tall house." Alexa devices in some viewers' home were also triggered to order doll houses. So ultimately, there were multiple doll houses order triggered from multiple Alexa devices. Another story. So it is in the modern era, we are talking about machine learning, we are talking about artificial intelligence, and there is a constant pressure on companies to, be cool, to be automated. So sometimes we are in hurry to replace humans with technology, and this is what happens if we do it in hurry. So this Tesla driver, he actually died in a first fatal car crash using autopilot mode. And why it happened? Because Model S failed to distinguish a white tractor trailer across the highway against a white bright sky. So these kind of things can happen. It is our responsibility to avoid such incidents as a designer. And now all of us are content creators. So Facebook, anybody can push any content. On Instagram also, anybody can push any content, and the product becomes much more vulnerable because we don't know the quality of content. We don't know the authenticity of content which is being pushed by various users. So we need to carefully design content regulations as a designer community. So this is a classic example of Instagram content. So there is a machine learning algorithm in Instagram which identifies the sensitive content, and if content is identified as sensitive content, what happens is it blurs the content and it gives the disclaimer on top of it. User can read the disclaimer, and if user is still okay to open it, it is his call, but at least there is a disclaimer, right? So this is how we can stop users receiving the sensitive content or receiving the fake news and so on. So it is becoming more and more critical these days. So yeah, that's where I would like to end my talk. We had limited time, so I tried my best to kind of give you overview for the field of UI UX, and this would be my message to the upcoming designers in this field. With great power comes great responsibility. Thank you once again, and
Thank you,
feel
Anand.
ask me questions now.
Yeah, are there any questions? Can you just raise your hand? Before they start raising hands, I wanted to ask you, Anand. So this thing about technology taking over our lives and still keeping it human centric, how do you strike that balance? Because how do you resist introducing new technologies like Alexa, etc.,
Yeah.
versus keeping it still human? How do you resist technology in your field?
To be very frank, it is difficult because companies they are always inclined towards technology. And if you look at the big brands, they are majorly technology brands, right? They are not user experience brands. So it is difficult for them to understand, but it is our duty to kind of fight and make them realize that it is not needed or it might be harmful for users. So usually what I do is I take it to end user. I do some research bit, and then I create a report. If it is vulnerable for end user, I create a report and I strongly oppose that bit of technology, and I tell them, let's wait, let it be more uh, robust before we actually introduce it.
Okay. Are there any questions from the students, especially in the audience? Right. So one of the things, see, these guys, the students who are watching this are all in foundation, and some of them are choosing interaction design as their discipline going forward from the next year. So one of the things they always wanted to know was, what does the field entail, and does it require a technology background to get into this? You know, uh, or can anybody learn UX? For instance, you went from product design to UX. Is the transition so simple? Is it as simple as that? Are you able to apply your product design concepts to UX, and vice versa? Can that happen, or do you need to know something specialized before you get into this field?
I think you can learn on the move. For me, transition was very simple. So if you look into the process bit, the design process is quite similar to the other design fields. what is unique is the technological aspect. So whenever I talk about technology, you don't need technology. You need not to learn the coding, let us say. You just need to learn the technology and its limitations, its aspects on the design and so on. So you can easily acquire it if you are curious enough about the technology. I think you can do it.
Okay.
And it is never ending thing, right? So
No.
tomorrow there might be a different technology which is introduced. So
One of the things we tell at JKLU is that you are a lifelong learner.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we have to learn to keep learning, and so I think that's one of the things we also preach. And okay, this audience is loaded; they're not saying anything. Any faculty who have any other questions or remarks or reactions? Gaurav and Promit and all these people. Vedoshi.
It's not a question, Anand, but I think it was a very interesting talk, and thank you for sharing your work. And I think
You have to speak up. You can't. I can't hear you. You can speak up.
okay. Am I audible now?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, yes.
Yes. So I was just saying it was a very interesting talk, Anand, and thank you for sharing your work that you've done in Samsung and SAP. And I think it was a very nicely compiled presentation around the observations of whatever products we're using right now. Like you gave an example of Instagram, Alexa, and these are the products that we interact with every day. And we just there's just so much possibility, and there's just I don't know what will happen in tomorrow's UX. It's changing so rapidly. So yeah, I think it was very nicely compiled presentation.
Thank you.
Hi Anoop, this is Gaurav.
Yeah, hi Gaurav.
So, which one part is that usually we associate, for example, UI UX to interaction design, right? So I wanted to understand, because interaction design as a field is now coming up, and a lot of colleges are offering it as well. So according to you, what all other aspects can be associated with interaction when we say as a general word, and how technology can help in it? And the second part is key, according to you, where do you see UI UX, your projection for UI UX in future, apart from the web and phone application, for example?
Okay. Okay. So the first thing, like now the scope of UI UX, it is going beyond the screen. So with IoT and all, as I gave you an example, my water purifier is connected to my phone and it is giving me live summary about the health of the water purifier or the quality of the water. So now it is actually getting into the typical product portfolio as well. So typical products are also now connecting to the technology, and it is becoming more connected from the technology point of view. And another part is the scalability part. So now it is much more scalable in the era of this cloud computing and machine learning. So everyone can connect very quickly, and one update can reach to millions in no time. So it is much more scalable. And so what I can see is some bit of UI UX will be everywhere, even in the normal product portfolio as well. So now there is a concept called connecting home, and you can see that even the bulbs are also becoming smarter, and there are robots interacting with your home, and there are security cameras giving you update whenever something happens in your home. So I think it will be everywhere. Even we have scenarios where we have fitted the sensors in the windmill, so it will tell you whenever the servicing is needed or whenever something is going wrong. So it is tremendous. It will be everywhere, I would say.
Okay. Thank you, Anand.
Thanks, Anand. There was somebody from Facebook has responded saying that she's been seeing it on Facebook. And she says, this is a very informative and reassuring for a technophobia person like me. And so thanks very much for the informative session, she says. So thank you, Anand. If there are no more questions, I think we'll log off here because we are going to do other things. One of the things I want to do now is invite you over to our campus. Please come when the lockdown is out and you find some time to travel. Jaipur is a very nice place to come to, and you could also come and meet our students and interact with them and see the kind of work they do, etc. So we'd love to have you on campus and host you there.
Yeah.
So that's a standing offer from all of us here. And thanks, Anand, for putting together at such short notice this whole thing. We're very happy to have had you here. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye bye.